there is a path. Hello, welcome to the channel. If you're watching this, it's my very first upload. Actually, not my very first upload. I had a YouTube channel a few years back, but that's another story. It's my first upload on this channel. Since my time in doing YouTube in a previous time, a lot has changed in my life. And got a new philosophy on living. And I started this channel to capture that philosophy and encompass it with what I do in my life. Now you may say, what is this channel about? Well, it's about many things. Right now, the main thing that I enjoy is travel. I still work a full-time job, but the beauty of that is that I work remotely. So I could be anywhere in the country. Right now, actually in the globe with satellite technology. Right now, I'm in Duluth, Minnesota, staying at a campground, local campground that tends to be a campground I gravitate to more often than not. So this channel, like I say, right now is focused on travel, but it could transition into something different. But the primary focus of this channel is living in the moment, being aware of the now. You see, back in 2019, there was a series of events that caused some great reflection in my life. Number one, I had started my first official business. Of course, I had been in other quote-unquote businesses all throughout my life, starting at age 21, multi-level marketing type businesses. And not to say there's anything bad with that, but when you really look at the numbers, it's a situation where you have to get people under you to make money, and I just couldn't reconcile that in my mind or in my soul of getting people under me to make money. I kept trying and trying and trying, but it just went against the grain of who I am. Tried some other businesses in terms of, solo proprietor type things where maybe I'm selling things, selling cars to make money, that kind of thing, fixing them up, making money that way. But when I first did my official business, this was something where I actually hired an attorney, set up an LLC, started a company, and I was very excited about it. And then about a year and a half after starting that, a friend of mine who I had worked with previously decided to break away from that company and join me. We joined forces together to form a business, and she was an incredible business partner, took it to another level even still. And after about a year working together, the business part was successful on her side. I was struggling on my side, and also our relationship ended eventually as well too. So that kind of tore me up. Real close friend of mine, nothing romantic involved, just real good friends. Fast forward to COVID, I was watching videos on travel and camping and getting outside, and it reignited something in me. And I bought the van a week before the official pandemic was declared and started working on that. it was just a blank slate, small Ford Transit Connect, something that worked with my budget. I had a car that I traded in for. It was nearly paid off. And I started my journey and spent some time, that whole summer, 2020 and COVID, working on that van. By the fall of 2020, that van was pretty much complete. Of course, you in that van life world, you folks know that your build is never really complete. You're always improving and tweaking upon that. But in terms of me hitting the road, I was ready to hit the road. So about 2 months after that, would say towards the end of December, I gave up my apartment and hit the road a few days before New Year's, and started heading for the Southwest, which for me was kind of a haven from the upcoming winters we get here in lovely Minnesota, don't you know? It was kind of a breakaway to get away into warmer climates. And I've kind of been doing that. I think I missed 1 year, but I've been doing that ever since, going down there for at least a month to the Southwest, primarily Phoenix and the outskirts of Phoenix in the national parks there, Coconino and Tonto. Tonto, actually, this past year was my first time in Tonto. I did Coconino for a number of times, Sedona, Flagstaff. Those are the areas I tend to really gravitate to and love. Yeah, I hit the road that year and fell in love with it. Like I said, I started the channel back then, and things have changed a lot. Actually, during that time, I got a chance to travel with my dad. We'd always talked about it. My dad, when I was a kid, he'd always talk about how he would travel across the road, mainly for work, things like that. He'd go places and he preferred to drive rather than fly. But we always talked about maybe taking a trip together. And my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's several years back. I think about the time during COVID. I think he was in about his 4th year after his diagnosis. So I could see things kind of changing in him. And I presented to him and said, "Hey, Dad, this is the time. If we're ever going to try it, let's go ahead and give it a shot now." So we are off to Colorado and then on to the Grand Canyon. You ready, Dad?
I hope we don't fall in.
Well, we made it about, I'd say, 4 hours from our destination in Arizona. And Dad had, I think he didn't have a stroke, but he was pretty close to having a stroke. And we had to get him to emergency services in a hospital as soon as possible. We wound up in Winslow, Arizona for a few hours, and they ended up taking him via ambulance from Winslow, which is about 3.5-hour drive, 4-hour drive down to Phoenix, Arizona, where you can get serious medical care there. And we ended up getting stuck in Phoenix for about a week. That was quite the scary experience. But Dad made it through. I ended up driving the longest drive I've ever done in my life straight through. The next, after that following week, when he got released from the hospital, made a trip straight from Phoenix to Minnesota with maybe 5-10 minute shut-eye, that kind of thing. So that was a very unique experience. But it just started something in me, and I just enjoyed that. So I thought that was going to be something that I would stick with for a very long time. And Dad's condition started to deteriorate a little bit more, and I found myself spending more time, checking in and on and managing his experience. He had, healthcare workers coming to his house at least 3 or 4 times a week, kind of filling in the gaps, things like that. And it got to the point where we had to make a decision to put Dad in a nursing home. And he really struggled with that. And I struggled with it too, because I can understand, he's probably where I got my nomadic spirit from. And for someone to lose the ability to be independent was tough. And I could feel it, what he was going through. And I decided maybe it was time to just kind of pull things back, settle down. And I ended up buying a home base. And part of that too was being on the road. I don't know, most of the content creators in the van life, traveling airspace, a lot of those people they have or they end up having a home base. So that was my concept of just getting a home base. And I figured, Dad's in a nursing home, maybe 3.5 hours away from town is a place that I purchased a home. So I figured that wouldn't be too bad. At least I can get in to see him, at least once a week or 2 times a month, and visit with him. So I bought a house 3.5 hours away from the city. Well, I ended up making a lot more trips in the year that I owned that house into the city to see Dad. Some of the appointments that he needed to be at the VA were getting dropped. Just, I guess, being a new person in the nursing home, things just weren't working out too well. So I found myself making more and more trips into town to either go on appointments with him, things like that, and coordinate things, in person. So I posed it to my dad, and I thought, he still had some mobility. I posed it to him that, I'm trying to sell the house where I would sell the house where I'm at, and then we'd try and give it a go at maybe having him we'd live in a house together. We'd certainly try and pick up the in-home healthcare that he had, and that way he could have some semblance of independence. And so we ended up buying a house together, and then at that point I still owned the house 3.5 hours away outside of the city, and eventually about 4 months after buying the second home, sold that house and moved into the second home and started getting things prepared for Dad. One thing I realized, what I didn't think of as I started preparing the house, that it wasn't really friendly for accessibility in terms of someone having some mobility issues, walking, having to use a walker and things like that. And I thought, this is going to be pretty tough. Brought my dad out to see it, and we were leaving the place after he saw it, and I said, hey, I think we're going to get close to moving you in. His comment was, and I was shocked by that. I think he was accepting the fact that he knew that he needed 24-hour care, and the way the house was set up, it probably wouldn't work for him. But in my mind, I was still dead set on getting him there and trying to make things work. Well, got things to the point where I think I was ready to move him in, and probably a couple of weeks before I was going to call him and talk it through, he had a major fall and fractured his hip. And at that point I knew, hey, this is not going to work. So I guess, things work out for a reason. He ended up having a full recovery. Since then, he's had 2 more major health issues unrelated to his falls or mobility. So it was just confirmation that he's in the place where he needs to be right now. So even though I was living closer, just having a house was kind of a downer for me. Even the house I bought just outside of the city, 3.5 hours, love that house, great house, beautiful bungalow style home or arts and crafts style home, about a 1/4 acre lot. What I realized through that process was, hey, I'm doing a lot of maintenance and mowing the lawn. It had lots of trees, which I've always wanted a wooded lot. But I didn't realize this. Someone told me early on when I was sharing my vision for having a wooded lot home. This is a person who had a wooded lot home, and they said, well, there's a lot of maintenance with all those trees there. And I said, you don't know anything. Well, I found out soon enough that there's a lot of maintenance. After storms, in fact, when I put that house on the market, about a month after I put it on the market, one of the trees on the side of the house, one of the huge oaks on the side of the house, a huge branch came off during a storm and hit my neighbor's house. So that was a sign for me that I was doing the right thing. But in the second home in the city, I realized that, even though it ended up being a smaller home, a smaller lot, there still was maintenance involved. And I only stayed there for a year, so that's crazy. I had 2 houses in 2 years that I had. And I only ended up staying there for a year, ended up selling that, sold it for a pretty good profit. There were some things that in terms of how we structured the deal that had to be paid off and things like that. But for the most part, sold it for a profit, and I consider that a blessing.
Put a lot of work into that house, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that house, getting it ready for market. And I'm now in a position where I really feel like I'm my authentic self. And that was one of the things I said to myself back in 2019 when I went through what I went through with the loss of the business, the loss of a good friend. I thought, and I remember saying this to myself out loud, it's time for me to start being my authentic self. And ever since then, I just been analyzing and just looking at my life and taking in the moments and thinking, what am I doing to get myself towards that vision of where I see myself? Like I say, currently I mentioned that I work remotely, and I am blessed and grateful to have a job that I can work remotely, but it is a stressful job. It takes up an enormous amount of my time, of my life. I guess part of my authentic self, when I really think about it, is this right here. Starting a channel, sharing my life with people, inspiring people, hopefully inspiring people. That is definitely my wish. Being in the moment. Like right now, I'm in my camper. This is my second home. I'll do a tour on this at some point or another, but very small Wolf Pup 14cc. You can look it up, but I'll do a tour, like I said, at some point. But this is my home. And that's another story, how I got into this rig that I am in now. After I had spent time in the van, I was inspired by a number of content creators in the travel space, in terms of travel trailers, fifth wheels, things like that. So it got me thinking, maybe I want to change my rig up. I kind of regret it. I'm happy with what I have now, but I kind of regret making that decision for the simple fact that van life is so much more flexible in terms of where you can go, where you can get into, and where you can stay. And it's definitely a lot cheaper for the simple fact that you have one vehicle. So now I have two. I have my tow vehicle, which is a 2020 Ram Rebel, and then I have this. And I initially wanted to keep that flexible lifestyle when I got the Rebel. And what sparked this all too was, in addition to seeing other people having fun in this type of rig setup, I also went to an area in Arizona, and I was trying boondocking for the first time. I got to this site and it was just packed, and it was I forget the name of it, something off-highway vehicle, OHV boondocking site. I didn't know anything about that. So at the time, to me, it just looked like chaos, because you had regular nomads there, and then you had your off-highway vehicle people there with their four-wheelers, things like that, and they were buzzing around the campsite, and it was just jam-packed. And I sat there for a while, and I thought, this is not going to work. That was kind of like my cue to say, hey, it's time to pack up and try and find another spot. But as I was getting ready to leave, I saw way down off in the distance two other campers, and they were in off-road vehicles, and they were way off site there. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just try that before I take off and try and find another spot down the road. Well, I started going that way, and it was almost like a wash, and it was like really almost that really fine pebbles, rocky pebbles, like sand almost. And I almost got stuck, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to make it down there. I don't even want to chance this. I don't want to get stuck. And I backed out of there. Thankfully, I got out of there, and it got me thinking. So that was another process that got my wheels turning. It's like, if I had four-wheel drive, I could, not find myself in that situation again, where I'm in a crowded area where I'm basically relegated to stay with, a ton of people I don't want to be around, I don't know. I thought if I had four-wheel drive, I could get off into the bush and have a little bit more peace. Well, that got me going. Probably about a year and a half after that, I was in my first four-wheel drive vehicle. And the thought was I would do a slide-in camper and have a little more space. And I still would kind of pseudo live that, van / stealth van life or whatever. It wasn't too stealth because it's a camper and a truck. So You can't be too stealth with that, but it would at least afford me the ability, when I'm not in the city trying to stealth camp, if I wanted to get out into the bush and do some serious boondocking, I can get further and further off the beaten path. So I got the new rig set up, got the vehicle, got the camper, and actually I think I drove like almost 200 miles to a dealer where I purchased this. They had one of the best deals on a brand new sliding camper that I could find. Purchased this camper, very excited about it. Sweet little deal. It was a soft-sided pop-up. So the main reason I purchased that was because it was lighter than your standard, full-size sliding camper with hardtop, what have you. So I purchased that. I got a big wake-up call when I drove home. Well, when I was driving home, I just remember white-knuckling it, the 200 miles back home, because I could just feel the thing just swaying and yawing and doing all kind of different things, and I could feel the impact on my braking. I thought my truck was a very sturdy truck, but I ended up discovering that this particular camper was, even before with dry weight, even before I had my gear in my truck and in the camper, I was 200 pounds over the GVWR gross vehicle weight rating for my truck. So I went on a camping trip after that, and then I ended up, it had only been like 3 weeks since I purchased it. I ended up calling the dealer and saying, talking to the salesperson, say, hey, do you folks have any a way I can maybe trade it in or bring it back? And he says, no. He says, but I have every bit of confidence that, that's going to work for your truck. And I was like, I just don't, I'm not feeling it, man. It just seems dangerous. And he's like, no, it's going to be fine. Well, I ended up, doing some searching, and that's when I realized this might be the better setup for me. I thought maybe this would, save gas because not all the weight is in my truck. Got a big wake-up call with that too, because now it's like I'm pulling a sail. But I've had it now for 3 years, and I thought about maybe another rig would probably work better for me, but I've come to the point that I'm satisfied with this. This is pretty much where I'm at now until I can get back into maybe a van. So I just realized that, hey, this is where I'm at right now. I love this thing. It's got great space in here, a queen size bed behind me. I've got bathroom, shower, everything I basically need. It's just that the only thing is I just don't have the nimbleness and flexibility I had when I had the van. But I digress. But this channel, I hope, will be an inspiration to you. I want to cover my travels. I want to cover my love for food. I want to cover my love for friends and meeting people on the road, which since I started, my journey on van life, back in 2020, 21, I met some great people. Even now, in this current setup, I've done some travels recently. I spent some time in the UP, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, met some great people on my travels throughout that process as well too. So I'm hoping to highlight food, friends, fauna, flora, and faith. So I hope you'll join me for my journey here, and I hope to make this as entertaining as possible for you. And again, I hope to inspire you with that in mind as well too. So if you wish, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video.